morning. Welcome to the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners meeting for September 8th, 2020. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start with the agenda review. Bob?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
People moves the agenda.
Landcamera seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, could you call a roll?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. And we're going to jump right into some ditch hearings. The first one is on judicial ditch, or JD7. The purpose of the hearing is to consider all matters pertaining to the viewer's report on the redetermination of benefits for JD7. Since we may have the public calling in on a conference call, I would ask the staff and any others introduce themselves prior to speaking. We will now have the drainage staff go over the judicial documents.
1 second here.
And
Okay, if Craig or Ryan are on the phone.
This is Craig Simpson, Blue Earth County Ditch Manager. For jurisdictional documents, first of all, this is actually, we're going to be having technically three hearings on two different ditches. We're going to cover the JD7 redetermination of benefits first before we move into JD14. For JD7, the hearing notices along with the viewers and owners reports were mailed on August 14th, 2020. The hearing notices were published in the Mankato Free Press on August 13th, 20th, and 27th. Hearing notices were also posted at the courthouse on August 21st, 2020. And that is it for jurisdictional documents.
all right. And we will now hear the viewer's report for the redetermination of benefits for JD7.
Okay, this is Dan Ruby, viewer from Jackson, Minnesota. Can you see the slideshow, the free PowerPoint?
Let's see, no?
We're getting there.
Is it in your packet?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in our packet, but let's see if we can get it up on, okay, now we got it up online.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
Good. All right, first slide, Blue Earth County, JD7 redetermination of benefits. The viewers for this project were Dan Ruby, Bill Anderson, Lance Roberts, and Ron Rehnquist. Ron Rehnquist is acting as the alternate consultant. This report covers the redetermination of benefits for a previously constructed drainage system. It is a comparison of the conditions prior to artificial drainage with those that should exist with the drainage system in a reasonable state of repairs. The viewing process is a map appraisal process that values a universal property as of a given date using a standard methodology, employing common data, and allowing for statistical testing. Aids to viewing. We use USDA soil survey, GIS photo and data, Minnesota LiDAR, yield averages, production costs from Minnesota State College, University's farm management records. We use sales data from the Blue Earth County Assessor's Office, and we also do a visual inspection of each 40-acre tract. In this presentation, there's only a couple pictures. This is a picture of JD7 and JD14's watershed. Summary of JD7. It was established March 27, 1916 by the 6th Judicial District. There's been no improvement as of May 15, 2019. There has been maintenance done. Repairs completed in the spring of 2015. The watershed consists of 1,069.4 acres. It is a tile system. It has 19,155 feet of tile. There is no ditch, therefore there is no buffer purchase. It outlets into the Minneopa Creek and then into the Minnesota River. The redetermination of benefits was ordered May 29, 2018, and at that time it was using the original benefits listing. Benefits refers either to the impact of the drainage system on the land in terms of improving the market value of the land, or the impact that the land has on the drainage system because of land use that accelerates drainage, transports sediment, or increases volume damage in the drainage system. Damages means the reduction of value resulting from the construction of a drainage system, including the value of the land actually taken for an open channel or for permanent grass strips bordering it. Severance damages, loss of crop production during project construction, and diminished productivity due to increased overflow. Here are the benefit classifications based on conditions prior or before drainage. The A's were open water and cattail. The B's were seasonally flooded hay and pasture. The C's, they typically need drainage. The D's typically do not need drainage. The NB category is reserved for trees, conservation, wetland areas, and native non-converted. Our other category, we typically put roads in. Valuation prior to drainage. A, standing water and cattail had a market value of 0, economic productivity of 0. B, seasonally flooded pasture ground, market value of $1,000 to $1,500, an economic productivity of $80. The C, the wet subsoil marginal cropland, market value from $5,500 to $6,500 with an economic productivity of $510. The D, the outlet market value prior to drainage would be $5,000 to $8,000 with an economic productivity of $605.63. Here's the potential value with NRCS guideline drainage. The A's, drained slough area, medium class ponded agricultural ground, market value from $6,000 to $7,000, economic productivity of $586.50. The B's would be considered well-drained ground, a high class. It's market value from $7,000 to $8,000, economic productivity of $612. The C's, well-drained ground, the best class, would be market value of $8,000 to $9,000 with economic productivity of $637.50. The D class is well-drained ground, high land class with improved farmability. The market value for this is between $7,000 and $9,000, and economic productivity of $631.13. We did an income approach to value calculations. We based it on a 2-year rotation of corn and soybeans. In this calculation, the income was our average adjusted income was $380, and the soybeans was $250. The direct production expenses for corn was $233.30, and soybeans was $113.81. On the next slide, the benefit value calculation. After tabulating all that, our benefit values were for A's, $4,590 an acre. Our B's was $3,390. Our C's was $2,020, and our D class was $560 benefit value per acre. Here's a summary of how it was done. We have potential productivity value for our B acre of $637.50. We adjusted it for the efficiency of 96, so it was $612. Our production cost of $341.96. Beginning productivity value of $80. Our change in productivity was $190.04. Private improvement for the tile that's in the ground is $36. Annual benefit value was $154.04. We calculated it, the capital gains we calculated with the capital gains for 25 years. So you go 25 years at $154, discounted at 1% capital gains, and it brings you to a net benefit value rounded of $3,390 per acre for your B class. Efficiency the net benefit is reduced when actual conditions do not meet NRCS hydrologic efficiency standards. This tile system does not meet NRCS standards. For example, in the A class there, you see the red 75%. That's how close it was to meeting. It was 25% less than the NRCS standard. Proximity is used to adjust benefits to allow owners not directly on the system a reduction for the cost of tile or connection to the system. This is done by distance and joint costs for the connection. On the right, where it says JD7, there's a purple tile line here. This person would receive a proximity of 100% because they are on the system. As you go west in this example, for each 40 acre parcel, each quarter away, we typically reduce it approximately 15% to allow the farmer money on the table that he can invest to get his water to the county system. The proximity is in the center column of your report. Here, designated in red. Roads, we measured the roads in the red column there. The length we measured for feet, and then in the lower table we classify it based on A, B, and C and D. We call it just like the soil, the cropland, so that the cost for the roads varies based on the actual soil that's underneath the road. Recommended changes. Okay. There were 3 recommended changes in Blue Earth County on JD7. There was parcel owner provided maps as evidence to hit this parcel being effectively tiled out. Okay, on the eastern side of the JD7, there's 2 3-acre parcels. The north parcel, he provided us tile maps. We're asking, we're recommending that it gets removed and the watershed would be adjusted. So there's parcel 103 and there's parcel 303 on the east side of the, if you see it in your handout there. Then on the north edge of the system, there was a parcel owner provided tile maps as evidence to these parcels being effectively tiled out of the watershed. There was, in section 10, in the southeast-northeast, there was 18 acres that was effectively tiled out, so we recommend removal, and we can draw the watershed down the 219th Street. Then we have section 11, southwest, northwest, there's 14 acres that was tiled out. There's 7 acres that still benefit from surface drainage only. Viewers recommend reducing proximity by 50% and have 5 Ds as its benefits for this parcel. And we recommend that the watershed would be redrawn for that one. Then there's section 11, southeast, northwest, there's surface drainage only. Viewers recommended reducing the proximity to 50% with 16 Ds for surface water, for surface drainage. And then we have section 11, northeast, southwest, there's 38 acres. It's tiled out. There's 3 acres that benefit from drainage and 34 acres that benefit from surface drainage only. Viewers recommend reducing the proximity to 50%, 3 Cs and 34 Ds. These recommendations acknowledge that these parcels are surface drainage only and not to be used as an outlet for future tile connections. The last recommendation is for section 11, northwest, southeast, be reduced proximity to 50% to correspond with the proximity reduction given in the northeast, southwest. To be fair, neighbor to neighbor, they still have the same proximity. Okay, next page. Oh, I guess there is, If the above are accepted, the total net benefits will be $1,865,920.34. Okay? That's the slide you're on there. 2020 termination of benefits for Blue Earth JD7. I just stated that what the net benefits would be. There were 42 acres of A's, 152 acres of B's, 669 acres of C's, 206.4 acres of D's, with 1,069.4 acres of benefited acres. With that, are there any questions for myself or Ron?
This is Will Purvis. I have a question.
Okay?
I was contacted by one of the landowners, both on 17 and 14, and he asked, we used the crop prices at $4 corn and $10 soybeans. Of course, we all realize that those prices haven't been that for quite some time. Would the benefits, I assume the benefits would be significantly reduced if we brought them to current market values.
Well, we reconcile the numbers. We do what looks the best. But would Ron, would you speak to this, please?
The benefit values are scaled. The income approach is used to establish a difference of value based on the need for drainage more than anything else. If you lower the crop prices to $3 for corn, it does not change the sale value, which is what determines the benefit, the before and after value. What it changes is the return on investment or the capitalization rate. What $3 corn in the equation would do is show that they're losing money this year, even though they're still paying the $8,000 to $9,000 an acre for the good ground. So by changing the value of the commodity, it does not change the benefit, only the return on investment to the producer.
Oh, now that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I think that question was with a lot of us, you know. So, thanks for explaining that. All right, is there any other questions for Dan? All right. No, if there's, we will now open this hearing for a public comment. The hearing can be recorded, so please state your name and address. And as a courtesy to others wishing to comment, please limit your comments to 3 minutes per person. Does anyone wish to do a public comment on Judicial Ditch 7? Does anyone wish to speak on JD 7? One last time, does anyone wish to speak on judicial ditch number 7? If there's no one else wishing to make a public comment, we will bring these matters before the board.
Purvis moves approval.
People seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this?
I don't have any questions.
Any discussion? With no discussion, Jesse, could you call a roll?
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. All right. And that one passes. We will move on to JD 14, judicial ditch number 14. And this is our final hearing on the proposed improvements for JD 14. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the petition for the drainage project with all matters pertaining to the detailed survey report and the reviewer's reports on the determination of benefits and redetermination of benefits. Since we have the public calling in on the conference call line, I would ask that staff and others introduce themselves prior to speaking. We will now have the drainage staff go over the judicial documents. Greg?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello? Hello?
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Craig.
This is, okay. This is Craig Austinson from the Blueberry County Drainage Manager. We'll start off with the jurisdiction documents. This is a hearing for improvement. It involves probably 3 board actions. One, approval of the redetermination of benefits we'll use to address the separable maintenance and actually allocate the separable maintenance. The actual approval of the actual improvement, establishment of improvement, and assuming there's establishment improvement, there will be a resolution of financing. The hearing notices were mailed to landowners on August 14th, 2020. The hearing notice was published in the Free Press on the 13th, 20th, and 27th of August 2020. The hearing notice was posted at the courthouse on August 21st, 2020. We'll go on now to read, statute requires us to read the DNR report into the record. So I'll go with that. We have a letter from the DNR addressed June 6, 2020, as addressed to myself, Craig Austin, Blueberry County Drainage Authority. And this is subject final engineering report, judicial ditch 14 improvement, Blueberry County. Dear Craig Austin, on behalf of the Director of the Division of Ecological and Water Resources of the Department of Natural Resources, I offer the following comments on the final engineer's report for the proposed reference above, in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 103.301. As communicated in the DNR's comment letter on the preliminary engineer's report dated February 13th, 2019, the drainage projects have potential significant impacts individually and cumulatively on downstream water resources. The following comments and questions are intended to ensure that the proposal, options to minimize negative drainage impacts, and means to support and expand any positive impacts of this project are fully considered. The comments and questions will follow the table of contents of the April 24, 2020 final engineer's report. Design, hydraulics, outlet capacity. The proposed drainage improvements for the 661-acre watershed will increase by 0.27 inches per day from the existing 0.20 inches per day to the proposed average of 0.47 inches per day, or 2.3 times greater than the rate of drainage. This will increase the discharge by an additional 15 acre-feet into the Minneopa Creek during the same 24-hour period. Has the Drainage Authority considered the increase in flow, the adequacy of the culvert immediately downstream to handle additional volume during flood events, the potential impacts to downstream properties, and the impacts to the overall stability of Minneopa Creek? Abandonment of the existing tile. Proposed drainage improvements indicate that the existing mainline tile being replaced will be abandoned by the drainage system in accordance with 103E.806, causing the mainline to convert to a private tile and no longer be part of the JD14 system. This abandonment is according to statute, but that the tile line will be physically connected to the proposed system. Do the flow calculations and adequacy of the outlet consideration include this additional drainage volume and annual flow contributions from the abandoned tile? The DNR requests to include these volumes in the preliminary engineer's report and final engineer's reports to accurately represent the drainage improvements, benefits, and potential cumulative impacts to receiving water resources down from these projects. Installation of drop intakes and water quality intake. The proposal final engineer's report states water quality inlets are designed to provide surface drainage to wash rock filter and infiltration during low flow events. This allows the sedimentation and nutrient uptake prior to runoff entering the buried tile system. The DNR asked for any references that may indicate the degree of nutrient uptake and sediment deposition relative to the water quality inlets. Storage options. The alternative storage option for the preliminary engineer's report was not included into the final engineer's report due to cost. The DNR encourages the Drainage Authority to mitigate increased volumes through storage options identified in the preliminary engineer's report, other viable options. Adequacy of the outlet. Verify that unit table 3 total flow rates into the Minneopa Creek are correct. This project will increase stream flows, which may exacerbate downstream erosion issues immediately downstream from the outlet. The DNR requested the criteria used to come to this conclusion. It is the opinion of the engineer that both the proposed options will provide an adequate outlet to handle the proposed improvement of Blue Ridge County Judicial Ditch 14. Current reviews of the downstream crossing shows significant scouring of the bank erosion occurring downstream. Adding this additional volume discharge will only compound those hydraulic and erosional impacts. Multi-purpose drainage management. DNR asked if there's any concerted effort on the part of the engineer to promote or ensure that any of the preventive measures, control measures, treatment measures, and or conservation drainage practices will be applied and to achieve their stated benefits. If so, what those efforts and to what degree were they successful? The engineer states that these measures would be good fits for grants if the timing of the project works in conjunction with the grant schedules. Has the engineer provided any guidance or information relative to the timing of the project and grants? Environmental and land use criteria. Minnesota Statute 103E.15015 Subdivision 1. The engineer provides the statute language subdivision to 1A, investigating potential use for external sources of funding and technical assistance when planning a drainage project or repair under section 103E.715 and prior to making an order on the engineer's preliminary survey report for a drainage project or an engineer's report for a repair. The Drainage Authority shall investigate the potential use of external sources of funding to facilitate the purposes indicated in section 103E.011, subdivision 5, and the alternative measures in subdivision 1, clause 2. This investigation shall include early coordination of applicable soil and water conservation districts and county and water district water planning authorities about potential external sources of funding and technical assistance for those purposes and alternative measures. Based on the previous paragraph, the DNR requests that actions the engineer conducted relatively early coordination with the Soil and Water Conservation District about potential external funding sources and technical assistance for alternative measures. What were the opportunities the Conservation District provided? DNR requirements under Minnesota Statute Section 103D.301. Minnesota DNR finds that the detailed survey report may be considered complete after the project engineer added details to the report as requested in this letter. Please contact Todd Colander if you should have any questions about this letter. Sincerely, Todd Colander. That is it for jurisdictional documents. One thing, remember, there is a memorandum again from ISG in regards to this DNR letter. That's in the board packet. The engineer will address those issues as part of his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. That was my next question to you, is if we got those answered. But thank you very much. We'll now hear from the engineer. Would you please introduce yourself, and for those listening on the conference call?
So Chuck Brandel with ISG.
Joe Donkers with ISG.
We've
Morning.
got, morning.
Good
We've
morning.
got a presentation a little bit different
Oh,
format.
you know
than
what? You know what? I'm supposed to have
Oh, yeah.
the petitioner's attorney first, so I jumped.
That's all right.
So you want to step back, Chuck? I know
Yeah.
you're right here, and I appreciate you, but the petitioner's attorney, would you please introduce yourself, and for those listening, Bruce Sellers?
Yes, I'm appearing by phone. I would like to defer any comment until after the engineer presents this report.
Well, I guess I should have had you anyway, shouldn't I? Well, thanks, Bruce. All right, we'll now hear from the engineer. Please introduce yourself for those listening at the conference call.
Again, Chuck Brandel with ISG.
And Joe Donkers with ISG.
Our pictures. So here's our outline. We've covered a little bit of the process, but we're at the final engineer's report. Really, we're here to obtain feedback from landowners and the Drainage Authority, ensure the project is feasible, practical, cost-effective, and a necessity. And then we also have the viewer's determination of benefits and a redetermination on the system. So we've started this project. The PER was submitted in January of 2019. Prior to that, we had landowner meetings, which included a feasibility study. During that time, and I'm just going to address one of the DNR comments right now, we did go over multi-purpose drainage management. We did look at areas where you could do wetlands, you could do other practices. We put together a couple different options for storage ponds, and we really didn't get any feedback on that. So that was done very early on prior to the PER. It was done again at the PER landowner hearings, and it was done again at a landowner meeting that we had online a few weeks ago. We only had 2 landowners on that call. We did invite the SWCD to all of these meetings. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. So we have every step we've brought up those things. But I just want to bring it up in here as we go through the schedule. So the existing conditions of the system, it's just under 700 acres. There's about 80 feet of fall within the watershed. Originally established in 1917, no major repairs, no major improvements. Here's the watershed boundary, shown in red. There's the tile line consists of it's kind of a unique system that it goes up a little hill. It has a 16-inch outlet, then goes down to a 14-inch tile going up the hill, and then there's a 20-inch tile, and then a 16, then a 14, all the way down to an 8 on the main line. There are 4 branches and 1 lateral. The petition included improving all of the main line and all of branch 3 and branch 4. The existing drainage coefficient at the outlet, assuming it's working like it was put in 1917, is 0.20. It's obviously functioning less than that now. Here are some pictures. Now these were taken during the spring flooding time. Part of the reason we do that is when we do our hydraulic modeling, we want to see that it matches up with how the system actually functions when the tile is not functioning very well. You can see that without the tile, this system would be, a lot of the system would be underwater. You've got 2 county roads that go through the system, CASA 11 and County Road 114. During spring flooding, at least during this picture, they were almost overtopped. So generally the conditions are below a 1/2 inch drainage coefficient, and part of the reason that branch 1 and lateral A were not included, landowners felt that they had enough capacity, so they just included branch 3 and branch 4. And branch 2 also has adequate capacity. So those could be repaired in the future and have a better outlet with the main upsized. So a little bit on our proposed design. When we look at a proposed design, we try to have a minimum of 5 feet of cover. Portions of this system have less than 18 inches of cover right now. So it's the improvement both gains capacity and depth. Depth is just as important because without that you can't get private tile to the system. We try to get to a 1/2 inch drainage coefficient. We look at alternative BMPs all the time. If we can, we like to incorporate storage, and if we can, we have no increase in discharge at the outlet. Joe, go over this.
Once again, Joe Donkers, design engineer on it. I'll go through the proposed watershed. Shown in the red line is the watershed of the system. The black line are all public existing tiles of the system, and the green line represents the proposed improvement tiles to the system. The improvement will improve the main line as well as branch 3 and branch 4, like Chuck said. It will begin at the outlet at the same location as the existing outlet, where it will be a 30-inch tile. The tile runs generally northwest, where we'll transition to a 24-inch tile where it goes up that hill and can gain some depth. It will connect on to the existing branch 1, continue northwest, where it will connect on to branch 2. It will then transition to an 18-inch tile just east of County Road 114. We'll connect on to branch 3 as well as branch 4. It will then transition down to a 15-inch tile running north, just north of CASA 11. Branches 3 and branches 4 will be improved as well, and they'll both be 10-inch tiles. It also, another alternative is to use a pond, which is not recommended, which Chuck can go over in a little bit.
One thing to note, all the drainage capacities are above a 1/2 inch. We did look at storage. Joe, you want to describe the outlet?
Yeah, so in order to try and due to the increased flow rates, we try to decrease the velocities outletted into the stream. This includes 2 90-degree bends in order to reduce flows. Yeah, it's shown right just north of Meopa Creek. And then it will also include a drop structure, which is designed to try and reduce flow rates. About 1,000 feet upstream of the outlet.
Yeah, so we're disconnecting from JD7. Currently, these 2 systems outlet at the same location. We're still going to outlet at the same location, but we're adding a drop structure and bends because as we come down the hill, the water is speeding up. We're trying to slow it down before it hits the creek. Do that all within the mechanics of the tile and take down the velocity. Typically, we would do that with a storage pond. We're proposing a storage pond in this corner right here. You can see by the aerial photo, there's equipment out there. That landowner retiled that entire corner. The storage basin would also have to accommodate some of the flow from JD7 because their overland flow comes down. So when we looked at the cost of the storage basin, it was more than the benefits. So instead of that, we're trying to reduce velocities coming down the hill.
And on top of that, when we recommended that when we went over that in the PER, we got negative feedback from the landowner due to the fact that he put private tile on his land.
There was one other area for a storage basin in the upper part of the watershed. That was one of the landowners that petitioned for the project and he wanted the improvement, not storage. So we did bring that up. Here's what the storage pond would look like to kind of reduce those peak flows. Also accommodating some of JD7's flow. So as part of the project, we're proposing separable maintenance, which means that we're abandoning the existing tile. The tile will be completely abandoned. We also have to look at the effects of the 5, 10, 25-year, and 50-year events. We had the 2-year event based on our a working agreement with the DNR that we show a 2-year event as part of all of our models. And we also look at the 100-year event just because for protecting structures. So we've got a couple videos, and I know these didn't show up for those online because we had a PDF. We use a program called XP Swim. Joe gets to put this model together and run it. Very detailed model, and this is showing the timing of the event. Existing is on the left, proposed is on the right. This is a 2-year event. You can see after 24 hours, anything green or the lighter colors is still flooded. So the 2-year event shows a significant increase in capacity. The 10-year event is really what these systems are designed for. Oh, I have to go one more. Here we go. So here's the 10-year event. And what we're trying to design for is we can have some temporary flooding on the landscape, which is shown here, but we want that to be gone before 30 hours, 48 hours to protect the crop. So this area here will continually flood, but the new system will drain it down as you get into that point right here where your crops are starting to die. So here is an inundation map. This shows how long the water sits on this system. So anything yellow, orange, or red, crops essentially die in this rain event. And here's the proposed.
Wow.
So it's a significant difference in adding the system. Now we did look at, this is where you could do a wetland restoration. Also, landowners did not want to do that. So here are our results showing the flow rates. We do increase the flow rates on the 2- and 5-year event. When you factor in the overland flow, the events higher than that, we're very closely matching the existing flow rates. Part of that is that downstream is that we are disconnecting from ditch 7, so we're not piling all that water up. We've got different timings of those outlets. If you do put in a pond, you would have decreased elevations. We typically go over this with landowners. I'll go over this fairly quickly, but some of the construction practices we use for our cost estimates. We need to publicly bid the project. We need a list of equipment, bid bond. We require that every half mile landowners clean up after themselves. This is a project that was done this spring. The contractor got in there in March and early April, and he's working right on the top of the screen. You can see he's got this area chisel plowed, drove his truck over it, but either way, it's ready for the landowner to get back in there while he's working on the next 40. We have tile investigation included to find the existing tile. We typically use HDPE or RCP. HDPE, commonly referred to as dual wall, is what goes in about 95% of these projects. We require sand and gravel over those, and all of the existing tile are connected. There are intakes at road crossings. One of the DNR's comments was about using water quality inlets. We use the agricultural BMP handbook, which was developed for all of the state of Minnesota. It says using these type of inlets will reduce sediment by 75 to 95% using a combination of rock and these type of inlets. I won't show the tile installation. We use connections, inserted tees or pre-molded tees. Road crossings are either open cut for gravel roads, bored for paved roads. We have 2 paved roads in this project, so those would be bored. We included temporary damages. We've got about 30 acres of temporary damages for construction. And then when we use all of that information, we put together a cost for the repair and the improvement. Without storage, the separable maintenance, or what it would cost to repair the system, is just under $490,000. The improvement is about $620,000. You've got a difference of approximately $136,000. As the viewers go over their report, they found about $220,000 of benefits. When you compare those two numbers, you have a net benefit of approximately $84,000. If you put in a storage pond, do some rerouting of JD7, that's an additional $180,000. So when you look at your cost-benefit ratio, it does not work to do that. So thus, we're trying to do some velocity reductions. We do have some road authority costs. Road authorities are in charge of maintaining the system within their right-of-way. In this case, it's just tile, and there are some additional boring costs for the existing size that we included in the estimate. Those are approximately $29,000, and those would all be a Blue Earth County cost. So approximately half of the cost to bore an 8-inch line on CASA 11 versus now boring a 15-inch line. Like I said, we did go over multi-purpose drainage management with landowners, looked at many different practices throughout the system over and over, looked at storage areas, wetland areas. We did not get any significant bite on those. So, the response to the DNR letter, I covered a few of those items. A couple of them, the half-inch drainage coefficient is the standard for the system. You heard on the previous hearing that to get the full benefit of the system, you need to get to that NRCS standard, which is that half-inch drainage coefficient. We did look at the pond alternative. We did try to get that included in the project, and it just doesn't work within the cost benefit. And we have an unwilling landowner in that area. There is quite a significant amount of fall. Like we stated, we're trying to use bends and a drop to reduce velocities at the outlet. This chart here shows our reduction in velocities from existing to proposed. That the 2-year event were a slight increase, but the rest of the events were a significant decrease by adding drops and bends. This is just a summary from what was in the report. Some of the information that the DNR asked for was in the report. This is the flow rate comparison for option 1, and it also shows the elevations for option 1. We did look at the culvert downstream. Under the 10-year event, or the 5-year event, it does increase the elevation, the flood elevation, by just over ½ an inch, which we felt was adequate, that we didn't need to do any additional storage to make up for that. I think I can cover more of those things in detail if you'd like, but I tried to cover some of them along the way as we went. So, we did go over all of the environmental criteria. I won't read all of these, but they are in the report. And based on that, we recommend approval of the project, that it's cost-effective, practical, and feasible. We would like to do storage on every project, but in this case, it's not feasible. So we recommend option 1 for this project.
All right.
That's our report.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Sellers, did you want to speak at this time?
Sure, thank you, Commissioner. Chuck, did you believe that the project as outlined in the petition or as modified is feasible?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And there's a necessity for the project?
Yes, the existing system is very shallow and will be needed to be repaired if not improved. And it does not have adequate
Okay.
depth.
And the proposed project will be of a public benefit to most public health.
Yes.
And I believe you did say that the outlet was adequate as well, correct?
Yes, with some of the modifications we made, yes.
Yes, the public modification. Very good. That's all I have, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. We will now hear from the viewers. Nope. Yep. And would you please introduce yourself for those listening on the conference call?
Hello, this is Dan Rubio, viewer from Jackson, Minnesota. I'm going to now go over the Lewis County JD 14 redetermination of benefits. The JD 7 and the JD 14 are side by side. They were viewed, at the same time. The reports look much the same. So I will summarize whenever possible here.
All right.
We have the same appointed viewers. The viewing process was the same as we used in JD 7. We used the same aid. And the watershed map, you can see on the left, the smaller of the two watersheds is the JD 14.
All right.
The summary of JD 14 was constructed in 1917. It has had no improvement. The maintenance has been done. The watershed is 518.7 acres. The tile system is 14,500 feet of tile. There is no ditch, so there will be no buffer purchase necessary. It outlets into Minneopa Creek and then into the Minnesota River. The benefits and damages concepts were used the same. The benefit classifications based on conditions before drainage, they were the same. A's was open water and technical, B was seasonally flooded, C's was needs drainage, D's typically don't need drainage, and then NB's were our non-benefited, were trees, conservation, wetland areas, and non-native, or native non-converted. And the valuation prior to drainage was the same. Potential value with NRCS guidelines was the same as on JD 7. The income approach was also the same. Benefit value was the same. The example, the efficiencies, the thing to note here was in JD 14, the efficiencies were considerably less than in JD 7. Here we have the A's, the net, I'm going to read it, it says the net benefit is reduced when actual conditions do not meet NRCS hydrologic efficiency standards. This tile system does not meet NRCS standards. Our A's, we said, as they were prior to this, they were 40%, the B's were 60%, the C's were at 80%, and the D's were at 90%. Proximity example we explained before. Okay, the net benefit of the redetermination of benefits was $662,302. there were 24 A's, 63 D's, 213 C's, and 218.7 D's with 518.7 benefited acres. And that's the end of the redetermination of benefits.
All right, thank you.
When you look at, so we'll do the improvement in a little bit. Do you want the slides for the improvement?
Sure.
Okay, the improvement slide, what you can see the difference between them is you can see how low it is for the redetermination of benefits. It's 40, 60, 80, and 90 respectively. And when you do the improvement, you add that 40% to, like in the A's, you add the 40% to the 50% of the improvement, so you gain 50% efficiency. So now the new system, the A's will be at 90%, the B's will be at 90%, the C's and D's will both be at 100%. The damages for all the acres that will be harmed with this, damages will be paid in the sum of $500 an acre, and we're figuring for the years of damage. The first year will pay 100% at $250. Second year will be 50% at $125. The third year will be 40% at $100, and the fourth year will be 10% at $25. So we spread it out. Are there any questions?
Nope, doesn't look like it. Got anything else?
No, that's the viewer's report.
All right, thank you very much. We will now open this hearing for public comment. The hearing is being recorded, so please state your name and address. And as a courtesy to others wishing to comment, please limit your comments to 3 minutes per person.
For public comment, the hearing is being recorded.
Somebody's got their TV on?
I think so.
Does anyone wish to comment on JD 14? Does anyone wish to comment on JD 14? One last time. Does anyone wish to comment?
Yeah. We do have a written comment that was mailed in. This is Craig from Wheeler County Drainage Manager, Craig Austinson. Assuming that Greg Mickelson is not responding, he did send in a note here that he wants read into the record. I will do that now unless Greg is on the line and he wishes to speak.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. This is Greg Mickelson. I'm going to be out of town for the Ditch 14 meeting on September 8th. I'll try to attend, but I am writing this letter if I cannot connect. As stated in the August 26th meeting, for the income approach, $4 corn is a high number to use since corn futures have not been there for 4 years and recently was as low as $2.60. $10 beans is also a high number to use since it has only been that high a couple of months in the last 6 years and was recently around $8.20. With the sales approach, I don't know where you can find buyers at those levels, but I do know where you can find sellers at even your low numbers, me included. Use realistic prices from either approach would not make this project feasible nor beneficial. It is too costly for the benefits received. That's it for Greg's memo here.
Thank you very much, and I believe that question has been answered already. Commissioner Purvis brought that up already about the price of corn. And, but thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to comment on JD 14? Seeing no one, I bring this back to the board.
I have just a question for Chuck. How would the current prices affect the benefits? I see we're awfully close on this. If we used current prices or an average of the last couple, 3 years even, would.
Well, based on the comments that the viewers had, that they're looking at more of land price versus commodity price.
Sure.
But we are, the net benefit for option one is about 84,000. You know, on a $600,000 project, that's what, 12%. So it's not, if you had lesser land values, you'd still have some benefit there.
Okay.
A big part of that is the separable maintenance, is that you've got an over 100-year-old system that's going to cost $500,000 to repair, and you're replacing it. The difference is only $136,000.
Okay.
So.
Anything else, Will? Again, I'll bring this back to the board.
I don't have any questions, but Commissioner Brunder would move the redetermination of benefits.
Landcamer seconds.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Not seeing any.
I guess I just have some current concerns about the farm economy out there. It's not good right now, and based on the outlook on the economy, it's kind of a catch-22 here. I know the system needs to be worked on, but in the same token, I think it'll be a real burden on the landowners on this system.
Okay. Any more discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Nay?
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. All right. Second matter for business regarding Judicial Sitch 14 is a petition for improvement. There's a draft solution on page 231 of the board packet. Is there a motion?
Brunder would move approval for the improvement.
People second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Brunder? Back to Will's comment about the value of the land. I mean, this has a petition with the proper signatures and land, and for us to not approve it would be problematic because they do have the benefits, even though they are close, correct?
Yes, this is Chuck Brandel again. Yes, there was a multiple landowner meetings. There was more than enough signatures to move forward with the project. We did look at it at multiple options, and this was the option that the petitioners wanted to go through, and it does meet the cost-benefit ratio.
Whenever they're close like this, it is very hard to make this decision, but it is an improvement that will last 40, 50, 60, 100 years if it goes as long as this system did. So these are difficult decisions that the Ditch Authority has to make, but as far as I can tell, everything's been done through the proper channels, and I will be supporting this today.
Any other discussion? Jesse, call the roll.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. And the final matter of business is a draft resolution for financing found on page 235 of the board packet. Is there a motion?
Landcamer, go ahead.
Brunder will move approval.
Purvis seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. Great.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Just
Concludes.
Chuck Randall, one more comment, if I could.
You bet.
If there is an appeal period, if there's no appeal, this project would be constructed more than likely next year. By the time we wait 30 days, put plans together, advertise, we're gonna be in the winter.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment?
You bet.
As somebody who's been around for a long time and been in a bunch of ditch hearings, I just want to say how complete this is and how much it has changed, and we're making, I think, decisions with much better information, so thank you.
All right.
And thanks to the viewers.
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm going to get down to the last ditch hearing, or ditch issue that we got today. County Ditch 52 improvement petition, excuse me. Bob, you want to go ahead on this?
I think Mr. Austinson will be presenting this.
Greg?
Yeah, we had received a petition for improvement on County Ditch 52. We got the petition, we sent it on to Kurt Dieter, who reviewed the petition and found that it is complete, and therefore statute requires the next step is for the board to appoint an engineer to a preliminary survey, or which would be a preliminary engineer's report, and then present that to the board. So we're asking that the board appoint the engineer, accept the petition and appoint an engineer to prepare a preliminary survey. And there is a findings order in your packet for that.
All right. We got a request to appoint Chuck Brandel of the INS Group to prepare a preliminary survey report in accordance to the Minnesota Statute 103E. Do I have a motion?
Purvis moves approval.
Brunder will second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, could you call roll, please?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. And that finishes our ditch hearings, and we're going to take a short break, about 10 minutes.
Now you got more work, Chuck.
Thank you. Timing is good.
Keep Joe busy.
We just finished it, yeah. We'll keep Joe and everybody else busy. And again, these guys are doing a great job putting these together.
All right.
Well,
Morning, Commissioners.
good morning.
Mr. Chair, we have MnDOT staff on the line for their presentation. I wonder if we want to
Take them
ask
first.
Mr. Tilgis to just wait a little bit longer and...
Ryan, do you mind?
As long as Greg goes on the record telling me he owes me one.
All right. Greg, are you on the line?
I believe so. Can you hear me?
Wait, we can hear you.
Good morning, Greg.
Morning,
Greg.
Go right ahead, Greg.
All right, I'll neither confirm nor deny that I owe Ryan. No, but thank you all for letting us join you today. We appreciate your time and partnership that we've had through many years together working on different projects. We want to take the time today to kind of update you on where we're at on the STIP the next 4 years, and then our long-range plan, the 10-year program or the CHIP program. As all of you heard a little bit about, you know, the issues everyone is having with revenue that we're receiving and how we're managing our funds. We're definitely seeing some challenges here for us here locally, and we'll talk a little bit about those. I have Rhonda Allis out there, planning director. She'll tag team with me today. She'll go through the specifics of projects in and around Blue Earth County in the years ahead. So, Rhonda, if you go to the next slide, please. So again, we just want to talk a little bit about what we're going to have in front of us here today. Definitely the 10-year plan, a little bit on the legislative update, and most importantly, if you have questions or concerns or discussions, this is a great time to share those with us. We've had a lot of feedback from counties about looking at roads and looking at and good questions as to why we're having to delay some projects, but we'll try to answer those to the best of our ability. Next slide, Ron. So with that here today, again, I've already talked about this, but we'll talk about the next 4 years and the 5 to 10 year program for the CHIP program. Next slide, please. So what we've shown you in the past, and we look at so that you have an understanding of the variability in our funding that we've received, you can see that coming up on a low period here in 2024 of around $60 million. I always think back to when I came back to the district in 2012, we were averaging between $40 and $60 million a year. And you can see in the out years, we're going to be in that $130 million range for money that we're receiving here in the district. That's quite a range. We appreciate the dollars. A lot of that fluctuation has to do with the dollars that are distributed statewide. When you look at the road system as a whole across the state, that's where you're seeing a lot of that variability going forward. Also, as you know well, we've suffered a lot from those heavy rains at late June 30, and then again in July. And when you look at that bottom row down there, there's that thin blue line that talks about BART, which is our reactive dollars. We've definitely had to change program. There weren't dollars available statewide for to react to those erosion projects that we have. We've ended up with over 12 projects. We'll talk a little bit more about them later, but that's definitely impacting us here locally. Next slide, please. So what we try to show here is that what we have in the past, is kind of looking at where our investments are right now and where we anticipate them to be. The far right hand is the midship forecast for 24 through 37, which is that long range plan. And then what we have, what we show here is we definitely have the understanding that we need to move more of our dollars into pavement. And you can see that by going from 33.5% to 52.9%. And then we're reducing our bridge investment. There is a small caveat to that in the out years, and we'll talk about that in a little bit with some of the needs statewide for revenue. Next slide, please. So here we have our pavement conditions. This one on the left-hand side, we've been before you in the past where we're showing that on our system that continues to go in the upward trend, and grateful that we've been able to receive the resources to take that back down. This on the left-hand side, you really want that trending line to be going down, and you can see that by the end of our CHIP years 2030 that we'll be meeting our goals. Still 10% poor on low volume roads, which is still a challenge for everybody, but yet nonetheless we've really turned the corner from a high, I believe, a few years ago of being in the 18% poor. So we're looking forward to that. I recognize that's still 10 years from now, but we're doing what we can in order to make those good investments, bring that down into the manageable range for the percent poor. On the chart on the right-hand side, you want that to be trending upward. You want to be keeping your roads in good condition and bringing your roads out of poor and getting them into good condition. You can see that we're making headway there, especially on the low volume roads where we'll get that into where it needs to be for our goals. Again, that's all in 2030, but again, we're working towards that as you go. If you recall back at our funding slide, you can see that there's a lot more investment in our system in the out years, in the 25, 20, and 2030 years. Next slide, please. The little caveat caveat of what we're looking at out in 2030 is you can see that on both our high volume or the NHS system for bridges or the low volume and non-NHS system for bridges, that in years 27 through 30, you're seeing a definite increase in the percent for our bridges. That is in part due to the fact that we have the Flat Neck Bridge that goes between Duluth and Superior. And that bridge repair alone is going to take all of the resources we have for bridge for a 2-year time frame. And that you can see that a definite impact on our ability to keep our bridges in that 2% for category. So yeah, we have to plan for those dollars to be utilized for that. But again, as you can imagine, we're looking at other alternatives to manage that fiscally. So that it doesn't have such an effect on the system. But that's where we're at. That's the awareness we have for what we have coming up in the future. Next slide.
Say, Greg,
Yes, sir.
is there any time frame that the state has for that bridge up in Duluth?
So you mean in order that we need to get started on repairing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've pretty much pushed it out as far as we can. They're doing some repairs on that bridge this year to get it out to that time frame. But it is in need of the repairs. It's been on our radar for quite some time, actually.
So they figuring within the next 5 years or the next 10 years?
I'm sorry. It will be out in that, I believe it's 2028, 29. Right when you see that increase in dollars, that's when they're looking at building that bridge. I apologize.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Rhonda, would you take over from here?
I will. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Ken?
Yes.
Wonderful. Let me just verify also, my understanding is that you guys were provided the presentation, so you've been able to follow along with us, okay? Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, wonderful. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to start, you'll see in the presentation, and I believe you received the map separately as well. I'm going to start with our 2020 construction season project, just walk you through any updates that I might have on those, the status of those projects. And then I'm going to, excuse me, transition into the new projects that are coming into our program. So if you remember at the beginning, Greg talked about the 4 years of program projects and then those outer 6 years of planned projects. We update both of those annually, so what that means is we're always pulling in a new year of program projects into our 4-year STIP, and we're adding a new year of planned projects to the 6 years of our STIP. So we're going to talk real quick update on 2020 construction. We're going to then focus on anything that's changed, and that's really my goal today. I do not want to go through every project system-wide. My presentation will focus in on those 4 Lewis County. And I really want to focus on when we were there last year, what has changed from last year to this year. We have had some changes to our program. We are likely going to see some funding reductions due to COVID. So we're starting to plan for that as well. And it could impact our program already as soon as 2021. So statewide, they're looking at a $15 million revenue reduction for fiscal year 21. Our fiscal office is looking to cut $20 million of that. The districts have announced to cut $30 million in total. And that impact to District 7 is going to be about $4.4 million. And of course, what that means is just going to domino throughout our program and ultimately begin pushing projects back a little bit. So we're going to just take a look at what has changed from when we were here last year, visiting with you, to what the program looks like this year. So the one project that I really want to touch on in Lewis County for our 2020 construction season is where we are at with the Highway 30 project that spans Lewis and Waukesha counties. And we were fortunate to be able to put these 2 projects together couple of years ago, we had them as two separate projects. One that would start at Highway 83 and go over to Richland, and then a couple of years later, we would do the segment from Highway 22 to Highway 83. But we were able to move some things around and accommodate that as a single project now in 2020. And the last that I have been told on this one, everything is moving along very well. Essentially, the paving is all complete. It included repurposing a total of 21 miles, replaced 2 bridges or box culverts, one over Boot Creek to Richland, and then lining of several other culverts. We also added some lighting at some county road intersections, updated the guardrail, did some aggregate shouldering. So that project is scheduled to be completed in the early part of October. Right now, they're just working on doing some of the final, installing the rumble strips, the final striping, guardrail installation, and then just some general cleanup. So everything moved along very well. I'm already getting great feedback from those who drive that roadway regularly. They're excited to see it done. They were happy to be impacted by the project, knowing that in the end they're going to have a great road to drive on here for many years to come. So that was really the one project that impacted Weir County. Any questions on that project, or I guess, the status of any others? I'm happy to answer as best I can before we move into what our program looks like coming up in the next 10 years. Any questions?
Oh.
All right. With no questions, then let's talk about what we see coming up here, added in 2024 is going to be the next thing that we want to talk about. So 2024 is the new year of our program projects. And what that means is when the projects are in the 4 years of the STIP, typically those are funded projects, those are commitments. We oftentimes do not see changes to those projects once they're in that 4 years of program projects. There are things that happen, however, such as COVID, that will impact our funding, and we may have to make some adjustments to these. But as of right now, we are bringing you, if you recall on an earlier slide when Greg talked to you, we saw the graph that showed our funding over that 10 years of our STIP and CHIP. So recall 2024 was that low year. And so what we are bringing in 2024, we only have 4 projects that will be coming into the program. I'm just going to talk real quickly about all 4 of the projects, but really focusing again on those that impact Lewis County. So the project that you'll see on the, and you'll be looking at the map that just shows our 2024 projects, and you'll see the Highway 4 project from roughly Sherburne to Highway 60. And this actually did not come new into our program. This was a project that we had initially earlier in our STIP. And if you look just east of that roadway segment, you'll see south of I-90, Highway 263, down to Elon. And that actually is a turnback project that NDOT has going on right now with Martin County. And that project had to be pushed out 1 year to accommodate the turnback fund program. The funding was not going to be available in the year that we originally had it in the STIP. So in order for the district to take advantage of the turnback funds, we had to move that project out a year. And that caused a problem with the Highway 4 project because they serve as a detour for each other. So we had to push that Highway 4 project out to 2024. So that was in our program. It's not a new one coming in. It was just one that we had to push out a little bit. You'll see some work on Highway 60 in Lake Crystal. That'll see both eastbound and westbound lanes. They are still doing a small study along that section of roadway to determine the future of the bridge in Lake Crystal. So we don't have a final scope on that project yet, but that will be a project completed in 2024. The two that are probably going to have the biggest impact regionally are the ones that you'll see up on Highway 22. And the first one is going to be a multi-lane roundabout at Highway 22 and Augusta Drive. And the second one begins at County Road 57 or North Riverfront Drive, where that comes out onto Highway 22, and it will go all the way up to the River Bridge in St. Peter. And similar to the Highway 60 project at Lake Crystal, the scope of this project is still being determined. So I don't know what all it will include in the end. They hope to have that scope wrapped up sometime in October. We do know it very likely will include some 3-lane segments. It will not be a 4-lane expansion project, but will likely include some 3-lane segments, a lot of left and right turn lanes, and then some bridge rehab work along with that. And we also are likely going to be doing some work in partnership with the DNR to begin establishing at least a right-of-way acquisition for a future trail that will run along 22 between Mankato and St. Peter. So we can definitely keep you updated as we learn more about what will be a part of that project as that scope is finalized. Normally by now we do have the scope final when it comes to our program, but this one is a pretty involved project. You can see its price tag is going to run about $22 million. So this is one that we're actually paying for over 3 different fiscal years. So the project will happen in 2024, but we'll be paying for it in 2025 and a small part in 2026 because of high cost of the project. So any questions on the projects that will be coming into our new year of the program on 2024?
No, go ahead.
All right. Then what I'm going to do is transition into, and again, you'll see in your packet the next 2 slides are going to have, so you'll look at the slides that have the 2022 to 2020 to 2023 ACEP projects on the left, and the 2021 to 2024 ACEP projects on the right. And what we're going to do is take a look at those and kind of talk through what changed. So the next slide is going to show you the same for our CHIP project. So we have the 2024 to 2029 CHIP versus our new year 2025 to 2030 CHIP. So I'm going to kind of take those together and just really talk through what changed from when we were there last between that 10-year time frame coming up now with our latest update. So some of the things that have changed. Highway 60, both eastbound and westbound from Lake Crystal to Mankato. That project, we reduced the project limits. Originally, you can see on the 2024 to 2029 CHIP project, you'll see the red included all eastbound and westbound all the way from Lake Crystal to the Riverfront Drive Bridge. You'll notice on the 2025 to 2030 CHIP map, that project now is only going to go from Lake Crystal to Cray Corner. And it also was moved from 2029 out to 2030. So that's been pushed out 1 year, and the limits have been decreased. You'll also notice on that same map, Highway 30 from Highway 15 over to 169. When we presented this to you last year, we had that project in 2026. You'll notice now it's been pushed out to 2030. And we also downscoped that project. It originally was in there for a downward light topping, and it will be downscoped to a medium milled overlay. It will include some bridge work. You can see the little dots indicate where we will be doing bridge work with that project. And downscoping that changed that from a $21 million project to about a $9 million project. And then a final change is Highway 169 from Winnebago to Vernon Center. We actually moved that out. That was in the CHIP last year. You can see it on your CHIP, your 2024 to 2029 CHIP map. It was a 2027 project. But if you look at your new 2021 to 2024 ACEP project map, you'll see it's now a blue project, which means it was moved up to 2022. We had been developing this as a flex project. We happen to have some space in our program because of some shuffling we had to do to accommodate the Highway 14 4-lane expansion, which we will see in our program now. We were able to add that in 2022 and had to move around some things to accommodate that $74 million project. And Greg will talk a little bit more about that in his update here at the end of the presentation. But because of that, we were actually able to move up the Highway 169 project between Winnebago and Burns Center. At this point in time, the project is scheduled to end at the southern city limits. It will not include any work in Vernon Center. But I know that our state aid engineer, Lisa Vega, has been in contact with the city, and they are interested in doing some minor ADA improvements in town. We were also waiting. They were trying to access some bond funds for some work in town, some utility work, and so we were kind of waiting to see what happens or may happen with the future special session to see if there's any funding provided to the city for some utility upgrades at which time we look at doing a more thorough ADA for Americans with Disabilities Act improvements, so fixing those sidewalks and pedestrian lanes. So for now, that project will only go up to the southern city limits at this point. Remaining the same. So when we came last year, what is still the same now with this year's update? Highway 14 east and westbound from approximately Highway 22 to just east of Eagle Lake will remain in 2026. Highway 169 through the Mankato, North Mankato area. So it's scheduled to go from approximately Riverfront Drive bridges up to Lake Street, up near Appalachia. We'll be doing some improvements in that area. We currently, in partnership with MAPO, the Mankato, North Mankato Area Planning Organization, are completing a corridor study. We actually are taking the study all the way down to, we're talking 169 split, all the way up to Lake Street. We're looking at an entire corridor study in that area that will really help MnDOT, and it will help us to inform that future scope for that project out in 2027. A lot of bridge work that's going to be a part of that project, and that will also be very spendy. The North Star Bridge alone, we're looking at about $14 million in rehab costs just on that one bridge. And then remaining the same also, Highway 68 from Mankato to New Ulm remains in 2029, and that will be a pavement resurfacing project along the entire section of 68. And then we added to the program in 2030, a new project coming in will be Highway 22 from 83 to Bassett Drive. This one is out, obviously, a ways, and not yet being scoped. So it's yet to be determined whether that will be some type of an urban pavement project or whether it will remain rural in nature. We will know more. Typically start to scope those urban type projects, 5 to 6 years before construction. So we'll have a better handle on that one, probably in about 2024. We'll know more about whether or not we're moving forward an urban project or whether that will remain a rural section of roadway. Those are really the primary changes since we were there visiting with you last year. Any questions on anything that's currently in the 4 years of program project or 6 years of plan project before I turn it back over to Greg for some kind of wrap-up comments and legislative updates?
You know, I know this isn't in Blue Earth County, but what are the years they're expecting to put in the Highway 14 from Nicollet to New Ulm?
So that will be a 2-year construction project, and it'll begin in 22, and then it's scheduled to be wrapped up in 23.
All right, thank you.
Doesn't mean there might not be some final touches that may happen in fiscal 24, but I think for the most part, they'll be able to complete that in fiscal 22 and 23.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Rhonda, are these projects predicated on the state passing a bonding bill at some point?
No, well, this is based on where we anticipate what we anticipate receiving for funding based on just our current projections. So now, couple of things, and what Greg will talk about here in a moment. There are some things out there, some unknowns to us at this point. And one of them is the fact that the federal surface transportation bill is scheduled to expire the end of September this year. So at the end of this month, we technically should be seeing a new federal surface transportation bill. I think it's very unlikely that we're going to see a new bill, which means we likely will be operating under a continuing resolution. And that's making it something that we're going to continue to see the same level of funding that we have under that bill in the previous 5 years. So not knowing what the impact of COVID will be federally, not knowing what the impacts of COVID are going to be on our state funds. We already know there will be some impact. This is based off of the fact that given the targets that our central office gave us for these 4 years of our program, and those general targets for those other 6 years, that it assumes no changes to those targets. So if we see a reduction in funding on both the state and federal level, then we're going to have to make some reductions to our program. And some of that might be down-scoping projects. So where we might have done a longer-term fix on a section of roadway, we might be looking at a shorter-term fix, so not getting as much life out of it, but still able to move forward and take care of some of those pavements. If you recall, Greg showing that graph where assuming everything was status quo, we're going to get the money we think we're going to get, and we're going to complete everything that's in our 10 years of projects, we see our pavements improving in the district. If we start to see a reduction in funding, that obviously is going to have an impact on our performance measures for our pavements. And in order to cover more pavements, we may have to look at shorter term lower fixes, or we may have to look at just pushing projects out completely. That's kind of something the district's going to have to determine which is the best method moving forward. So we still don't know. We don't even know our budget yet for fiscal 21, and our fiscal 21 in NDOT started on July 3rd. So we've already been operating for 2 months under this fiscal year. We don't know our budget yet just because of all the COVID implications. So I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Landcamer, but it's kind of we're not really sure yet. We're moving forward, hoping best case, but I think it's very likely we're going to have to see some reduction throughout the 10 years of the program.
Thanks, Rhonda. And it did answer my question. Everything's in flux and nobody's sure what's going to happen with funding. I was on a call with DC the other day and they're saying a continuing resolution for a year as of October 1st. And I think that's probably going to happen.
Yep, I think you're correct.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Rhonda or Greg? Well, I think, go ahead, Greg.
If I could, step up a little bit here.
Yep.
All right, I think we've covered both the federal front and the state front, and are well understanding with all the revenue you deal with and we're flexible. We'll try to keep everybody posted on that. So you know what our short-term things that we need to do here locally, and in terms of moving some money around and managing things. I think the one thing that we're happy about and being able to make a commitment to completing that last leg of Highway 14 from Nicholas to New Ulm. As has been mentioned, we're shooting for letting next fall to 2021. And then with starting in 2022 and completing it open to traffic in 2023. So we have been soliciting federal grants to offset some of those monies. We still have one grant solicitation that we're expecting to hear back on here in September, and we're kind of hoping that the third time's the charm on that. If that doesn't go through, as you know, we had the legislature, or you may be aware, the legislature passed enabling legislation for us to be able to apply for a TIFIA loan, and we're in the process of doing that. It's extremely low interest rate. It's less than 1%, And so it'd be another way for us to manage that going forward. So we have that going on. I just is there a question?
Nope.
So I just want to thank Ryan for all the support and leadership he's provided to Blue Earth County and working with MnDOT. Most recently had another conversation concerning Highland County Road 56 in Eagle Lake. What are some possible alternate solutions that we could come up with there. We'll be meeting with City Council here, I believe it's next week, and reviewing some of those possible alternatives at that intersection. Appreciate the support that we've had in order to come up with some alternate solutions going forward. And again, the work that Ryan's been doing on the roundabouts at 14 and Riverfront Drive, taking that on, we truly appreciate that. As you know, we're also, we're very appreciative of all the work you did to get the Kern Bridge and put it into a couple of boxes. It's pretty unique right there, but that project went off without the hitch, and we truly appreciate it. I know it was a challenging project for you all and for Ryan, but we want to thank you for that. And now the work that's being done in order to find a new home for the Kern Bridge. Like you, I'm sure you've had your fair share of erosion issues. We're still working on the 68 mudslides that we had there. Highway 22 south by the Kibble entrance down in that area. I know that we've had some issues with hydraulics in that area. We're taking a look at that, seeing what we can do in order to improve the hydraulics in that area. So again, we're just doing our best to react and respond right now. These emergency repairs are in excess of $2 million for us, and it is going to impact the program going forward. But we're doing our best to get those projects wrapped up here by the end of this season. Again, thank you for your time today. If you have any further questions, I'd be more than willing to entertain them.
No questions from me?
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Greg. That was very, very informative, so thank you so much.
And thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you to both.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I think we can transfer into our engineer.
Good morning again.
Good morning, Ryan.
Got a couple of action items and quite a few informational items, so as always, please feel free to interject as we go along. Ryan Tilges, Blue Earth County Engineer and Public Works Director. The first action item for your consideration today is bids for a loader-mounted snow blower. As you may recall from our previous discussions this spring, these bids were solicited per the county board's request. This is to replace a 1951 unit, Snow Go blower unit that's mounted on a 1981 FWD chassis truck. The chassis truck has a broken axle and the blower is nearly impossible to find parts for. We had the 2020 Public Works budget did include $180,000 budgeted for purchase of this loader-mounted 300 plus horsepower snow blower unit, and the bids are included in your board packet for consideration. We received two bids. One bid from RDO Equipment for a Fair Snowcrete 948D unit. The price for that unit is $139,613 minus trade-in value. The trade, as you see, is very low from both bidders at $137,113. We're going to attempt to sell that unit online for parts. We think we could get more money than the trade-in value in either circumstance, and we have the option to do so or to trade it in when the time comes. So we're going to see which one would suit the county better. The second bid was from Cristeel on a LaRue D50 unit. That unit was $148,970.25 minus trade $143,970.25. My recommendation would be to award the bid to RDO Equipment for purchase of the Fair Snow Creek 940AD unit.
At full value at 139?
Yes, approve their bid as is with the option to sell in lieu of trading in.
Brunder will move approval.
Purvis seconds.
Got a motion, and we have 2 seconds.
Well, you can give it to Will.
Jesse, I'll let you decide who second
You
that
can give
one.
it to Will.
Any discussion? Well, it sounds like since we had an estimate of 180,000,
You're correct, we conservatively budgeted for this unit and had fairly good bid prices.
and that was some pretty good prices. Both very good businesses
Correct.
in our area, and appreciate them giving us good bids. Any other discussion? I'll bring it to the board.
You have a motion and a second.
Yeah, you already do.
We got a motion in a second. Jesse, could you call the roll?
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. All right.
All right, thank you. The second action item on your agenda is consideration of MnDOT agreement number 1044808. This is for a detour agreement, relatively low value detour agreement for said erosion repairs that MnDOT's going to be conducting. So they need to utilize our CASA 90 east of Highway 22 as a temporary detour. The detour agreement amount is $662.99.
All right.
Brunder will move approval.
Landcamer seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll?
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Okay. And MnDOT also typically requires or requests a resolution from the governing agency as well in support and approving of the agreement. So that's attached as a third action item.
Landcamer moves.
People seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll?
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I would maybe ask the board, for these types of agreements, especially relatively low value agreements, obviously they're a little bit outside of the band of our procurement policy. I did inquire to MnDOT as to why something of this low of a value necessarily requires a resolution and the full county board approval, where I believe our intent of our procurement policy is that department heads are able to sign off on these types of agreements. So I guess I would put that to the board. I'm more than willing to continue to bring them to you if you'd like. I am also willing to sign them if they're within our procurement policy guidelines, if you'd like less of these types of things being brought in front of you.
It's probably something we can talk about at a work session.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Okay. All right. The informational items, construction project updates. CASA 1 from 9 to 90, the surcharge placement, the last surcharge lift and cleanup should be completed this week, which would put us in position again to resume the full construction project next year, and that final illustrious leg of that massive turnback project that we took so many years ago. County State Highway 1 in Good Thunder from the west city limits to Ewing Street. That project was open to traffic last Friday with some minor punch list items left to do, but open to traffic, and happy to have that one completed and open for the residents of Good Thunder and the folks passing through. County State Highway 10 from east of Vernon Center to County State Highway number 1. The bottom lift of bituminous should be completed today or thereabouts. All pavement should be completed by the end of next week, and then we would have shouldering, turf establishment, sign installation, and striping to wrap up and get that open to the public. So the project's gone fairly smoothly, and again, another one we're looking for to get open to traffic. The 2020 bituminous overlay projects have been completed with just some minor touch-up work. The County State Highway 60, Stadium Road and Pole Road roundabout Project is substantially complete, open to traffic. I was able to slip right through there this morning and really don't miss
Pretty slick.
a one-way stop at all. No, so the city did a nice job with that project, taking the lead on it.
Just a comment, Will is now the only one without a roundabout in his district. Unfortunately, this one's in mine. It's my first.
Since I had the first one, everybody should have one.
I'd ask if that's an official directive or not.
I don't think you can put one together that quick.
I get a couple more next year on Highway 14 in Riverfront, so.
I did drive through it the other day, but, and you might not know the answer to this, but as you go into it, if you're coming and turning the one way to the right by Valley News there's a great big concrete, I would imagine it's for turning
So
semis, but
yeah,
not on any of the other corners.
Because that's not a 90-degree tangent type of roundabout where you've got
Yeah, it kinda kicks out the other way, yeah.
skew, that left a really wide entry angle where oncoming vehicles would basically be able to go into the roundabout way too fast. So that's kind of an exterior truck apron, so
Right.
similar to the truck apron that we put in the center of the circle. That was a recommendation by SRF Consulting Engineers, who did a peer review for the city of Mankato on the geometrics for that. Because the entry speeds were so high, they wanted something where it would slow vehicles down as they enter the roundabout to make sure that they're not coming in there at 30 plus miles an hour.
Because there's a lot of pavement there. I mean, it's a lot of road there.
Yep, and we couldn't bring the curb all the way in there because obviously that would prohibit some of the truck turning movements that were necessary. So first roundabout to feature that kind of use of the exterior truck apron, and we'll be keeping an eye on it to see how it performs. It makes sense in theory to me when we were reviewing the design and discussing it. And again, because of the skew, we weren't left with a lot of good options aside from that.
Otherwise, it looks really nice.
Yes.
It's totally different, though, than most of them, the looks of it, and,
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
You don't want to go over the top of it.
Not that fast, no.
No.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome. The County State Highway 16 trail from Stadium Road to Pleasant Street. The contracts have been awarded, Nielsen Blacktopping. They've been indicated they intend to begin the work next spring right away, in lieu of working on it here yet this fall. CASA 41 Bridge Replacement Project. The contractor plans to begin the project this week. Again, we'll be leaving the road open to local traffic. So a lot of that work will be taking place. Will be including building the new road alignment fill as well as the bridge abutment fill, because the south end of the bridge does have a significant grade raise. So they've got to get that fill in place before they start making the aisle.
So that'd be completed
That'll be completed midsummer next year.
midsummer next, okay.
So we've given the contractor some flexibility. They've even indicated, I think, that they want to work into the winter and potentially set beams over the winter. Probably not getting the deck forward because of the cost of heating the underside with a larger span, but
Okay.
We're hoping for a late fall.
yes.
Or late
Planning, sorry?
Or a late winter, whatever.
We'll hope for a late winter.
Yeah.
And an early spring. Planning project updates, County State Highway 27 from 17 to 2. Plans have been approved and they are advertised. We are electronically opening bids Wednesday, September 23rd. So that is the first time that we'll be using the RT Vision software bid opening process electronically. And the option that we did go with after speaking with Commissioner Landcamer was for the bidders to pay for the fee.
Yeah.
So it's like a $25 fee per bidder to pay to actually submit their electronic bid. No cost to download and review plans if they want to consider becoming a bidder, but a nominal fee to submit their bids.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it works, and hopefully no major issues. I know there's a lot of other counties using it, and it's something we've had on our radar, and I appreciate the push of getting into it. So save us some bid tabulation and some of the back end work on it.
Yeah. Thank you.
County State Highway 57 Riverfront Drive roundabout interchange at US Highway 14. Bolton Mink is nearing the 90% plans, on schedule to advertise for bids in February. The city has been coordinating the Lucina Siding and Roofing Company driveway relocation to a joint driveway on the platted city road or alley right-of-way that abuts their south property line. So that'll be a shared driveway that actually enters into city right-of-way to which they have access on the northwest side of their property. And that'll also be a shared driveway with the novelty store to the south. That was really a condition of moving forward with the design because the existing driveway was actually on MnDOT's access controlled right-of-way, which was not permissible in that circumstance. It was half on there, and there was a non-conforming driveway with half of it needing to be removed. And really because of the proximity to the roundabout, it was really a significant safety concern.
Will the Loyola access be changed at all?
We won't be going that far with our
Okay.
project. There may be potential for a future city project.
Okay.
We're going to have to reevaluate that farther to the south. CASA 1 from 9 to 90, again, with the surcharge work wrapping up this next week. We are moving into right-of-way acquisition and preparation of packets, getting appraisals completed. So once Jack wraps up signatures on a couple of parcels on 27, he's going to shift gears right away into 1 and begin purchasing those. We'd still like to get that out as early as possible for bids. We're hearing a very good bid results on these late fall, early winter bidlets because folks are looking for stable, guaranteed work for next year with some of the obviously economic uncertainties. In addition, on that project, we have closed the agreement with the landowners at the southeast quadrant of CASA 1 and CASA 90, so the home that we have to relocate, and as you may recall, it was either relocate the home or build a retaining wall that was 2 or 3 times the value that nobody really wanted, including the landowners. So we have finalized that acquisition, and that was a big one on that project, so that's taken care of, and we're moving forward with the rest of the right-of-way acquisitions. The 82 Victory Drive from Stadium Road to Hoffman Road. Bolton Mink is also working on design of that, moving toward the 60% plans. Just as a bit of a reminder, project features for that, I know we talked about it in concept, and as we move forward with final design, there will be a 4-lane road from Hoffman to Balserzak. That'll be divided. 3 lanes from Balserzak to the stadium roundabout, which obviously, again, continuous left and then a through lane in each direction gives us the ability to fit the pedestrian facilities along that segment that it did not have before. We eliminated the free right southbound Victory onto westbound Balserzak, and that primary reasoning was because that intersection, that right turning movement still functions well without the free right. It still functions acceptably. And because we're perpetuating the trail to the south, that puts the trail users with an additional crossing of a non-stop condition. So we had concerns with the pedestrian user safety for those that are coming down the trail and going to the south. They'd have to cross the free right that's a non-stop condition and then cross the subsequent lanes of traffic for the eastbound Balserzak. So that was modeled as part of the report, and that was an item of concern, and we did look at both scenarios and felt that it was better to eliminate the free right in that circumstance. And the project is also being designed in anticipation of the city's desire to extend the Balserzak Drive to the east. A southbound left turn lane will be constructed to the east Balserzak leg due to the city's request and anticipation again of that leg being constructed. So there'll be a turn lane that's constructed leading to nowhere that will be gored off with paint for the time being. So it'll be striped heavily to deter people from going into that left turn lane until the city builds their extension. It was something that was on the fringe of being included with this project. And effectively that East Balserzak Drive would provide circuity for the neighborhoods to the east as well as a connection point for the city's public works department that's not directly on Victory Drive. It's at a signalized intersection.
Okay.
CASA 27, one other item I guess on that 82, we are right now looking at concrete pavement for corridor continuity. That's a heavily traveled corridor. The rest of the pavement on that stretch is concrete. Right now our plan is to move forward and continue that, perpetuate that pavement design. CASA 27 in Eagle Lake, water main, this project is being driven by the city's need to replace their water main and their sanitary sewer. This was not included in our capital improvement plan. We were on a call a few weeks ago with the city council during one of their work sessions and discussed the alternatives of trenchless construction versus full reconstruction. I think by the end of the call, the city council relatively strongly indicated that they preferred to utilize full reconstruction because of the potential for differential settlement on each one of those trenches, as they'd have to go back in and replace the water and sewer leads to the mains. If they were able to replace the mains directionally or trenchlessly, they'd still have to go in for each one of those connections to each of the homes and dig 2 separate trenches to make those connection points, which then means that those settle while the rest of the road doesn't. So I think there's preference from a continuity standpoint to reconstruct the entire road. That would also give them the option to look at another item of desire for them has been to include pedestrian facilities, at least a sidewalk along the road. So that's one of the things we can look at as well as we move forward with the design. The kind of formulative or tentative conversation that we had with respect to how to pay for that road is typically the county would pay for 90% of the county state highway eligible items for road reconstruction, and then the city would pay for 100% of their costs of their private utilities, their sanitary sewer and their water main, and then the storm sewer share is determined by the state. Because that road was constructed in the mid-1980s, it really hasn't reached the end of its service life. At the time it was reconstructed, I'm sure the utilities were in good shape. I believe actually the water main was replaced as part of that project, but they must have some very corrosive soils that have eaten away at that ductile iron water main. So what we've done is prorated the life of the remaining life of the pavement over the expected 60-year life cycle that we use in our needs calculations, and that comes out to the county paying for about 63% of the reconstruction cost of the CASA eligible items, the city paying the remainder as well as their utility costs. This may be a city-led project. They are hopeful for a 2021 reconstruct. This may require, because of our workload, that we ask the city to be the lead on contract administration and construction inspection for this, which then we would prorate those costs with the city and share them accordingly based on each of our respective cost shares. So that's moving into 2021 potentially, and with CASA 10 and CASA 72 in Vernon Center, we had initially had those programmed for the last few years for 2021. But per my recent conversation with the city engineer from SEH for the city of Vernon Center, they're obviously highly reliant on state bonding to get that project completed, and I think it's fairly unlikely that they're going to get bonding this year for their project, unfortunately. So speaking with Chris, he did indicate that the city is understanding of the county's predicament and moving the project back. We've slid it back to 2022 at earliest. I think that's even perhaps overly optimistic as far as getting money in a project lined up at this point. But as I'm reprogramming our capital budget, I'm trying to at least make room for it in 2022. CASA 44 at Minnesota Highway 60 in Madison Lake, the cooperative agreement for the 90-10 cost share for the intersection realignment was signed by the city, so that'll be incorporated to part of the MnDOT project where the southerly intersection will be reconstructed to a more tangent. Right now it's kind of wise off, and what that means is that lets people northbound on Highway 60 going northbound onto our CASA 44 take a fairly hard and fast right. We have had concerns of speed out there, so from an intersection safety sight distance standpoint, it'll be significantly improved with turn lanes and lighting too.
Is that where you turn to go to Madison Lake?
Yep, so it takes you like past the public boat landing.
Yep. Okay.
And then with these projects and the potential for maybe moving CASA 7 up into our CIP to facilitate the new high school, middle school, elementary, and Maple River too, I am working on reprogramming a lot of our municipal projects within that capital improvement plan. I didn't intend to fully redo the CIP, but my intent is to provide you with an updated
probably each year at a glance sheet for your information, and try to have that to you in the coming months. And right now it's a little bit of a moving target, so I'm just trying to nail some of those projects down. Some maintenance activities. So in addition to our road construction, our maintenance crews are working very hard and doing a great job with everything that they're wrapping up and getting a lot of projects completed. The seal coating and fog sealing on all the county roads has been completed for the year for our pavement preservation activities. Gravel hauling, all work has been completed for this year. We covered approximately 100 miles, or about a third of our system, and we used 37,000 tons of gravel that were hauled. This 16 bridge, there's been some significant channel and just erosion, degradation of the channel as it moves. It's gone to the point where it's migrated and now it's compromising one of the abutments. So our crews are actually out there right now working on realigning the channel, armoring the abutment, those things that we have to do with our wildly meandering rivers. And the second round of our annual striping contract is set to begin here in the coming weeks. So that'll include some of those roads that maybe didn't get touched up or just were recently chip sealed, fog sealed. Our gravel crushing contract, we have about 15,000 tons crushed and about 25,000 tons to go, which is then our road gravel for next year, covering all of our county roads. And last but not least, the Rapidan Dam, an update on that. On August 26th, we had a call with Eagle Creek Renewable Energy where they did inform us that there may be another group that's potentially interested in acquiring Rapidan Hydro, which is their subsidiary, which is the leaseholder with Brewer County. That potential suitor was set to visit the dam and review the internal components as well as the external conditions last week. They're going to be providing us with a call September 10th, so tomorrow already. Sorry, 2 days from now. The Minnesota Department of Natural Resources has also requested a meeting to discuss potential stream restoration if decommissioning is pursued as a viable option. That call is likely to be held in late September this month. We've been in discussion with Bar Engineering regarding scope of services, and I think until we get a more clear vision on where Eagle Creek is going, I want to be able to provide more effort and energy into pertinent, real data versus maybe more hypothetical. Yeah. So we've kind of put them on hold for the time being on development of a RFP for services until we can better and more clearly define those services that we would like. Any questions?
That was great. Thank you very much.
Lots going on. How many miles of gravel roads do we have?
We have 304 miles of gravel roads, mostly county roads, but a few county stated highways.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Brian.
All right. So now we jump into our county attorney's report. Patrick.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Thanks again for the opportunity. Things are kind of on hold from their perspective. I know that the courts are waiting to find out what happens on the 15th with the governor. Then I'm sure we'll get another order from the Supreme Court Chief Justice. But we do have a senior judge that has been showing up 2 days a week. We've been trying to get more cases in, but the vast majority of those have not been in person, but they are still staggering things. I think when I was here 2 months ago, we were over 2,000 mandatory hearings behind. The calendar has been basically status quo, what it would be in a normal circumstances, roughly 100 pages, give or take. Obviously this week a short week because of the only 4-day work week, but last week 98 pages of what I would refer to as the old weekly printed court calendar. And the vast majority of those hearings, excuse me, typically over 98% of the hearings on that calendar come out of our office. So, and that doesn't take into consideration other hearings that we have and whatnot. Actually, the jail roster wasn't too bad over the weekend. Friday night, there were actually no arrests that were incarcerated, but then there were a few Saturday night and Sunday night. So with respect to the caseload numbers, the information speaks for itself. I just wanted to point out that we've got basically, these were numbers as of August 31st, and the commitment numbers were 44, and we still have 4 months left to go, whereas last year for the entire year we had around 45. We typically hover around that 50-some commitments per year, give or take, but this year has been an abundant year. I'll take any questions that anyone may have.
You just hit on my question. What exactly constitutes commitment?
Commitment, it could be for somebody that's chemically dependent, somebody that's mentally ill and dangerous, developmentally delayed. There's various levels of when we get a commitment file. It goes through the screening process at Human Services. Somebody may be put in the hospital on a 72-hour hold. That starts the process going through, and it goes through the commitment process, the committee through Human Services, and then to our office, and then into court. We've seen more and more of Rule 20s being ordered, and what Rule 20s are in a criminal case, if the defense challenges whether the person is able to understand the proceedings, it's a twofold. And did they fully appreciate their conduct, criminality of the conduct at the time they committed the offense? So, and a couple years ago, there's a rule under 2004 provision that where we would at least save some time, and the courts were able to start doing this after we talked to the judges. Then the examiner, because typically many of these individuals are under Rule 20, are examined by an examiner from St. Peter. Then that examiner serves as the examiner that we would use here locally and use that report, so it kicks right through. So it saves a little bit of time. Not always, but a little bit of time.
Especially since it's the same examiner.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right.
Great.
You know, and then every once in a while, sprinkled throughout those numbers will be some of the psychopathic personalities or the sexual personalities that are committed to the St. Peter Regional Treatment Center.
Thank you. I just wasn't clear in my brain.
Okay.
Thanks.
You bet. Anything else, Mr. Chair, Commissioners?
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody else has got anything?
Thank you.
No? Thank you. I think we'll jump into administrative services. Bob?
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes for August 25th.
Langhammer moves the county board minutes.
People seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Next
That
would be the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
Purvis moves the bills.
Brunder will second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 9 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Just have informational items for the board today. We have filled a part-time custody officer position in the county jail. And then we had a promotion of a children's services case aide, family support worker. That was a position that the board authorized a few weeks ago as a result of some opioid money that the Human Services Department is receiving. And then we received a resignation of a clerical specialist in the sheriff's office, as well as a retirement of our word processing supervisor. Be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Nope.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 10 in your packet is a business assistance grant program. There is some information in that memo that's included in the packet that I have some updated information to share with the board today. We did pass around an updated list of businesses that have gone through the review process. The board will recall that the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act as it's commonly called, provided $8.2 million to Blue Earth County to assist local governments and communities impacted by the pandemic. The county board did approve a portion of the CARES Act funding to be used for a small business assistance program, with $2 million being allocated for this purpose. To date, we have received 113 applications that have been deemed eligible after review by our Economic Development Authority staff based on the criteria that was approved by the board. Those 113 applications represent requests totaling $995,455.47. Staff are still processing additional applications, which will come before the board in future meetings. We did receive some additional applications that were deemed ineligible based on the criteria established. If the board wished to modify the criteria, it would likely create additional eligible applications and full use of the funding available. So that might be something we want to talk about either here today or at a future work session. At this time, though, staff are recommending approval of the 113 applications listed on the document shared with you this morning. The total amount approved again at this time would be the $995,455.47. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I believe we also have Courtney from the city on the phone if we have specific questions on any of the businesses listed.
Landcamer moves approval of this.
People will second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I don't know if this is a proper time for discussion about changes or if we just want to move this forward and discuss it afterwards.
I think it might be best to just vote on this,
That's what I
and
thought.
then, if you want to have ongoing discussion after that, that would be fine.
I just have a comment, not this. The folks that I've talked to that applied were very thankful and appreciative of the staff that handled these, said they were very helpful. So I commend the folks that worked on this.
Well said.
Doesn't look like we have any further discussion. Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, then item number 11 in the packet is the Department of Corrections Joint Powers Agreement. This is an agreement being recommended by the Community Corrections Department to allow that department to be paid for some additional supervision requirements that the Department of Corrections is asking our staff to provide. The amount that we will receive will not exceed $6,412.40.
Bring that to the board.
Brunder will move approval.
Purvis seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
The only discussion I have, it was interesting as I was reading the agreement that we really have no choice on this, as I read the agreement. And my assumption is that that $6,000 probably doesn't come anywhere near to covering our costs. But it appears that the state has an ironclad agreement where they can just send it to us anyway. So $6,000 is better than nothing, huh?
That's my good conclusion.
Yeah, we As county government, we get used to that sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, it's something about flowing downhill.
All right, any other discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 12 in your packet is the financial status report ending August 31st. You'll see our total revenues now sit at just under 70 million compared to last year where we were just under 60 million. Obviously, getting a check for the CARES Act of $8 million is a large portion of that increase, but we are actually seeing very strong revenues even with the pandemic and everything else going on. How long that will continue is a big question, obviously. Total expenses then are at 59 million, down almost 7% from prior years. Clearly, the pandemic is having some effect on our expenses, but we also are just seeing our contracts for our road projects a little delayed this year. So overall, our revenues are at 61% of our budget, so a little less than our target of about 67% at this time, but our expenses are only at 52%, so they are down quite a bit from what we would expect at this time of year. On the enterprise fund, being the Ponderosa landfill, you'll see that total expenses are exceeding our revenue by a little bit. As I mentioned in previous reports to the board, we did have some major expenses there, which is not uncommon, but we are closing that gap between the revenue and the expenses. The second page then includes our cash balances. You'll see that our total county funds now sit at 121 million. We'll obviously be spending those down some in the next couple of months with the CARES Act spending that we will see. But overall, we continue to sit in a very strong financial position. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Sounds positive for the county. I think we've been fiscally responsible, and it really shows. So thank you very much. We'll go on to the commissioners' reports on committees. And Colleen, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. On the 26th, I had a Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership Board retreat. Southwest Minnesota Housing has also gotten some dollars from Minnesota Housing Finance Agency to help people who have needs with rental assistance or something like that. So we have MVAC and Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership both covering Blue Earth County. And I think there are a couple statewide ones also. So I'm encouraging people who have some issues to contact one or the other. On the 28th, I had a call with Matt Massman from MICA, he wanted to talk about some federal issues with NACO and some state issues. That afternoon, later that day, I had elected officials briefing with Minnesota Department of Health, and then a Region 9 call later that day on some issues on diversity. On September 1st, we had a work session. On September 2nd, Vance and I were both on a call with AMC President Svee and Executive Director Julie Ring, talking about just everything that's going on with COVID and everything else. I got tested for COVID on the 2nd, and I got my results within 24 hours, and it said that I was COVID-free, so that's good news. On the 3rd, we had an Alliance legislative meeting. That's where we talked about the federal transportation bill, the FAST Act probably getting a continuing resolution for yet another year. As we heard this morning, state dollars are going to be down, and the Washington fly-in will be totally virtual now. They had talked about maybe a hybrid, but it's going to be totally virtual. That's all I have, sir.
All right, Kip?
After our last board meeting, we had a joint ditch meeting with LeSueur County and dealt with a couple of ditches that we had between the two of us and moved forward with those. The work session, we went through several items that were good for discussion. Had our MRCI conference call with the executive committee meeting, and everything seems to be going pretty well there. Brian is getting excited about trying to get things up and running again, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. The building is up for sale. There's a big for sale sign on it at Map Drive, and the one down in Fairmont is also up for sale, and I think they got some activity on that one. So they're trying to liquidate some assets and get the debt down, which will be very helpful, is trying to just operate on a day-to-day operations. I called into the department head meeting, listening on that meeting. I had planning and zoning, which we had several items on the agenda. They all went very well. We had a couple people speak, but nothing alarming. Very difficult to do the planning and zoning meetings online. Some of them people are out in the rural areas. We have problems with the connections, and it's just very difficult. So I can't wait until we can get back to meeting in person, because I think we'd get a lot more testimony and a lot more things that people may have concerns about. But I know the staff has been very active in reaching out to people that are in the area. So if there is something going on, we're trying to reach out to people, tell them to send a letter, call us, do something, send it through staff. Been very different operation, but I think we're doing as best we can with the situation. Luckily, we haven't had anything that's been very controversial, because that would be very difficult to deal with. All the stuff we are doing is pretty routine stuff. So, and then Mark and I had an RCEF meeting, and we did get a report with what's going on, which we will be sharing with the board here shortly after we review it. But things are going pretty well there. They got a lot of things going on, and they got a couple new people coming on in a couple other counties. So we got Brown County and Nicollet County is kind of trying to get something going. So there's a lot of things going on with that. So we had a good meeting, and that brings me to today, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Sure. With our MRCI, are a lot of the people who were previously working getting called back now? I know I have a friend whose son got called back, and he's excited.
Yeah, that's the plan, is to try to get them all back somewhere. We're trying to get them working in the community and not even having them come through MRCI, but they're trying to get them placed somewhere.
Yeah.
So
that's so good.
it is very exciting. So not
I
just
can tell you a personal story. My son, who has been working through MRCI for almost 20 years, I believe. He was laid off his job from Red Lobster because of the COVID, and never got called back because they're just not up to 100% like they were. Just got a job with Cub Foods. And he's happy as all get out, and of course MRCI is helping with the whole thing. So
Cub East, huh? Cub East.
Cub East, yep.
That's good to hear.
So, no, that's very positive.
And they're excited to get going again.
Very positive.
Oh, yeah. It's just such good news that they're getting called back or in a new job.
Will?
Yeah. Kip mentioned the joint drainage meeting with LeSueur County. Then the following day, at the Watonwan River Watershed Policy Committee meeting. Getting to the end of that, where we're putting the final touches on it. Hope to come together with a plan in the not too distant future. Of course, the work session and department heads. And then on the 2nd, I was on a call-in with the MSU Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement work group working on the curriculum for these two programs. So that's my report.
All right. Mark?
Okay, Mr. Chair, after the August 25th, after the board meeting, we did a joint meeting as a third person on the sewer, and the ditch. And September 1st, the work session. September 2nd, had department heads. And like Kip said, the 3rd, we had RCEF. And then I did that evening have a Maple board meeting, looking at some bylaw changes and so forth. And that actually concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, my report's rather short also. After our board meeting, I had a Transportation Alliance public engagement meeting with Margaret Donahoe and Commissioner Mike Beard and talked about how we were going to try to get, go across the state of Minnesota for the Transportation Alliance and do some more public engagement. And then on the 26th, the Highway 14 Partnership meeting. Everybody's pretty excited, of course, knowing that MnDOT's got their plans set for 22 and 23 for Nicollet to New Ulm. That's pretty exciting. Later on that afternoon, I had the call for the Rapidan Dam. And then on the 27th, I went up to the Jordan area where the Highway 169 Coalition had a meeting with Representative Craig on the intersection there at for Jordan, you know, talking about making that an interchange area. And it was a very, very productive meeting. And then, let's see. I met with Jesse on the 28th, and for the Have a Heart. And we did some taping, and we did some pictures for the Have a Heart program that is being put on here in Mankato. First, we had our work session. Later on that afternoon, had the NACO monthly membership committee meeting, which I'm on now. I got placed on the monthly membership, our membership committee. Of course, Colleen already talked about the AMC coffee for first Wednesday of the month. So if anybody wants to join in, everybody's welcome to join in. It's, you know, at the coffee for AMC. And we had our department head meeting that day. And on Thursday the 3rd, we had our South Central Steering Committee for Towards Zero Death. And that was the end of mine.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
One thing I forgot to say, the Transportation Alliance is going to be doing candidate forums around the state. And they have one scheduled for Mankato on October 12th. I think that's Columbus Day, Indigenous Day, so that might be changed, but I just thought I'd bring that up. They plan on doing these around the state, so
Yep.
people have more information.
Good point. Anybody else?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Do we want to give the staff some direction on the loan, or do you want to put that off to another time, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of moved beyond that after the vote, but staff certainly could bring back some ideas, or if you folks have direction you'd like to give us today.
I would like to see us go to in-home businesses. I think that's because there was a lot of in-home businesses. I know some personally that were hit really hard with COVID. I think that could be a program. I don't know if we want to change the amount or just have them show their costs and leave it up at $10,000, but show their costs. You know.
It would be the same format, I would assume, as that we're asking for now. One thing I'd like to see changed on it is that any business over 20 as of March 1st, there are a lot of businesses that were maybe at 21 on March 1st when COVID really we didn't know about, and now we're at 16 or something else. So I'd like to see a later date on that. If you are under 20 now, I think you should be eligible.
And do we want to have people reapply that's already received money? I mean, if we have we've only gone through half of the money. Do we want to, you know, of course they'd have to show that, you know, the money they've already received, but do we want to have people reapply again? I don't know. I'm asking for guidance from you folks.
I'd be more supportive of trying to get more people in the program.
Okay.
with
That-
raising the rates and the
Yeah.
home-based businesses.
Yep.
Maybe instead of 20 employees, 25, or change the date to pre-COVID or whatever, but trying to get more people to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I know one business that talked to me. They were at 21 on March
Right.
1st, and now they're at 16.
But they didn't qualify because of the
And they
March 1st
didn't
date.
qualify because of the March 1st date.
So we could either raise the people on March 1st, or we could move the date out. I guess it doesn't make, how you
We're
get
always
there
gonna
is-
hit that level.
Yeah,
mean,
I-
If we move it up to 30, there's gonna be people that had 31.
Yeah.
The idea of after the epidemic hit would make more sense.
To me, it does, yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to me that maybe the staff could come back with some
Yeah, we got-
suggestions, and maybe it's a work session
Got a little
to
time.
talk it through.
Yeah, I think they got a drift of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
It is. We certainly can put some ideas together. Obviously, time is of the essence in
Yeah.
terms of getting this money out, so we'll continue to take applications under the current criteria, but if we can get some revised criteria in front of the board soon, that will open up some additional opportunity for businesses in our community.
Well, I think all of us wanna help our businesses out across the county, so.
It was interesting. I talked to Dakota County the other day, and they're doing some interesting things, so that might be something we can chat about too. There are some, for instance, economic development places that got no money from anybody. And so they're shoring up like their chamber in some of those places just because they weren't eligible for any dollars from the feds or the state. So I think it's worth talking about some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
We want to make sure our businesses are strong and sustainable. We all feel that way, there's no doubt in my mind. So how do we help them?
All right. Is there anything else?
That's all I have for you, Mr. Chair.
I'll move
To adjourn.
to adjourn. Boy, thank you.
Hey, we all need help.
And I'll second.
All right, motion second. Jesse, call the roll.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye.